we need to be thinking differently than we have over the last 40 years, because have a look at that thinking, where has that led us to? We have this massive divide between the have and the have-nots. We've got political divides, black and white. My position is black, yours is white, so we can't agree. And I think, we get into echo chambers where we hang around with people who have the same opinions as ours, and so therefore that becomes the truth.
Hello, I'm your host, Aveline Clark, and this is the 6-Star Business Podcast, where we have conversations with amazing, incredible people all about what it takes to be 6-star, going beyond the status quo, doing things differently, and how they bring purpose, love, and impact into their businesses every day. And in today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with one of my co-hosts, Stephen Sandor. Stephen is a beautiful, remarkable man who loves to challenge the status quo. He's really good at it. He loves looking outside the box and thinking about things from completely different perspectives. And he takes that into the work he does in the world, where he works with business owners, companies, and he helps them to create workplaces of engaged employees and staff who have these open and honest communication practices. And he talks about safety, but in a really different way. He's forward-thinking, he's futuristic, and he brings all of that into this conversation, and he loves to bust through old paradigms. So enjoy this one with Steve Sandor. Well, here we are, another episode of 6-Star Business Podcast. It's another special one because I have one of my co-hosts in the chair, and this is Steve Sandor. Steve, how are you doing today?
Very well, thanks, Av. Isn't it funny sitting on the other side of the podcast chair? It's
yes,
it's an experience.
It really is. And thank you for agreeing, putting your hand up when I asked or offered for this to happen. I think it's really important that, you get the opportunity to share your story, because there's a reason why you're in the 6-Star community, why you've been hanging around with me for so long, and why you are co-host of the 6-Star Business Podcast. So it's obviously important to you, and therefore it's important that people get to know you a bit better. So,
yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity. Yeah, it's like, we're connected to make an impact, and I think we're part of a worldwide movement. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun ride.
It certainly is, and I'm really grateful that you're on the ride with me and with us all. So, all right, let's get stuck into it. So I'm going to ask you the typical questions that I ask every guest, and just to get to know you a bit better. Whereabouts do you hail from? Like, where are you in the world? Who do you serve, and how do you serve them?
Yeah. So thanks, Av. I'm based currently in Brisbane, so east coast of Australia. The capital of Queensland, for those who are overseas listeners. My clients are business owners who are running successful businesses, but are just being bombarded with the pressures of running a business and dragging them away from what they're passionate about, what they love to do. And so I come in as a mentor, coach, general manager, consultant, play a role to help them. And my catchcry is, get your business ready for sale so you don't have to sell it. And that way you can retire into your business and enjoy doing what you do. And so that's who I serve. Why do I do it? If I was very predictive and, if I was very calculating in what I would do, I would say that, this was a purpose. I actually fell into this role, but sometimes serendipitous events cause you to find your path. And so I returned from Papua New Guinea in 2019. COVID hit. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I look back on what it was that was my genius, what I love to do. And so I settled on that type of avatar, if you to call it that. And so the smaller type businesses. I am currently also expanding that service offering to be more of a mentor, same sort of thing, sort of creating capacity and capability within businesses, but doing it at an individual level. Again, not coaching, but helping them expand their management breadth.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. And just before I ask more work questions, tell me what's something you like to do when you're not busy serving people?
My two passions, but other than my children, because if my children are listening to this, they'd be very disappointed if I didn't say, my family. I love them dearly, but love playing golf with my sons, and my son-in-law. I call him my son-in-law, but he's my wife and my daughter's partner. He's a golf professional, so love playing golf with him, and riding my motorbike, which is a Tiger 1050. And I've got a couple of mates who we just love getting on the twisties. We're 18 again at 67. Just doing silly stuff,
What on earth is the twisties?
Roads that are in the hills that are twisty, sort of,
right.
Lots of curves and bends, that you can lean the bike over at silly angles, without falling over. Okay. And, so the sphincter, this is you get the sphincter moment, when your sphincter is like, and you go, yeah, made it. Good. Keep going.
Yes, got that. Okay. Yeah. So you like to have a lot of fun, which is great. Good to. Yeah. I'm so pleased to hear that. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. I'd love to learn a bit more about your journey. So you mentioned being in Papua New Guinea when COVID hit, or just before COVID hit. So tell me about the journey that you've been on that's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, there are two, I guess, significant moments if I reflect back on. And there's always a lot of significant moments in your life, that the sliding door moment where if you make that choice, you go down that path. But there were two, I guess, relevant moments that enable me to do what I do best now. And that the first one was when I was 32. I was working in the financial services industry. I got recruited to American International Group as the national sales manager for Australia. Had 30-something staff, 5 direct reports. Each state had a state manager that reported to me. It was the job to dream of, the big car, the salary that enabled you to buy the house that you couldn't afford, the credit card, the expenses, all of that. And I got the job because I had a very good reputation in the financial planning community. And this was in the general insurance marketplace. So I had no experience in general insurance, but I had a very good reputation. And they wanted to shake up the general insurance marketplace. I'd never done this before. The maximum number of people that had reported to me I had 2 reps and an EA. So I was a little surprised that I actually got the job, but I figured that they knew what they were doing. 3 months in, had no idea what I was doing. I was effectively a change manager, and my boss said, go in and do what you need to do, bash heads, make significant changes, whatever you need to do to change the way. And so I literally did that. I had no idea what I was doing. Lots of hubris, like, as a 32-year-old, no one can tell you what to do. And I failed. So 12 months, 15 months in, they sacked me. I reckon they got it wrong. I think they should have sacked me way before, maybe 6 months in. Would have saved us all a lot of pain. But, and again, at 32, it's not my fault. You start blaming other people, going and telling your friends, all the bullshit that we spin when we try and defend our position that's indefensible. But what bothered me most about it was that not very few people came and wished me well, right? And said, good luck in the future, Steve. And that really hurt because that's not who I was, Right? So I was behaving in a way that I just had no training in, and so I was bad at it. Right? So I'm not normally someone who is that demanding in the way that I manage. Anyway, so I went away and I started reading a lot of the management books of the day. Very fortunate, came back, got another job, ended up in beginning my emotional intelligence journey. And so for the next 30 years, I made a promise to myself that I'd never behave that way again, and I didn't. And when I ended up in Papua New Guinea, I was fortunate enough to work in the human resource space for about 7 years. So I built a lot of technical skills around culture, organizational design, performance management programs, and did a lot of training in that space of managers. So, we were a HR consultant, so we did a lot of technical work, but we also did a lot of cultural work around that. And then for the last 3 years, I worked as a line manager. So I took all the theory that I was implementing or professing in the training programs, which were all experientially based and business outcome focused. So there was no manual at the end of it that you walked away with and stuck on your shelf. There was actually practical applications of the training. And then when I got these jobs, I went, I wonder if that theory works. And so I actually applied what I was teaching, and it actually worked. Right? And I went, wow, that's cool. But, I always thought it was low bar stuff because I felt I needed to keep it simple, not because Papua New Guineans are simple people, but they just don't have the experience yet, the business experience. And so I made it as simple as I possibly could to enable them to be as successful as they could be. And then they could then expand upon that. And, in some cases I was there to help them as well. And when I came back from, and when I left both of those organizations, there were tears again, right? From all around, but they were tears of joy and gratitude because what we'd done is we turned two businesses around. And I say we because it wasn't me. I led these people. I was their leader. I was their boss. I was in control, but I wasn't controlling. And I enabled them to be able to do what they were employed to do. Whereas in Papua New Guinea, that's very rare. And normally the expat's job is to be in control and controlling to make sure that the job gets done. And it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work here in Australia. It doesn't work internationally. So, yeah. And, so that was the antithesis, so I left one organization and don't let the door hit you on the arse on the way out. And the other one was, I'm sad to leave.
So you came back to Australia in 2019 and then COVID hit. What happened then? Did anything change for you then? Your plans?
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about why I came back to Australia because I was halfway through a 3-year contract, and this is before COVID. So this is the end of September 2019. And the chairman of the company that I was working for was asking me to behave in a way that was not, I didn't want to behave that way. He was very controlling, demanded things to be done his way or the other way. And I just refused to do that. And so there were a number of times when we had conversations where I was just not prepared to compromise on my values. And so he sacked me. I wasn't going to resign, so he sacked me. And then and so sometimes, people who are in positions that was a big risk for me. Right. I could have kowtowed to his demands and, stuck my tail between my legs and gone, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. But then the trust that I'd built up with my staff, I would have lost that trust because I would have had to have behaved differently, and they would have seen that, and we would have not performed, and we were the best performing division of 3 divisions, and I just couldn't understand. So that's why I ended up in Australia. So I actually had clients in PNG that I was going to work with. So I had an executive. I was doing some executive coaching for a managing director up there. I was had a performance management program that I was talking with a government agency up there and a third company. So we had contracts that were ready to go, and then COVID hit, and that's when I went, okay, well, I can't travel. What do I do now? And I didn't have a network in Australia. So I had a really good network in PNG, but that was useless to me. I had 87 connections on LinkedIn, and I'd been on LinkedIn since 2008, 2009. So they were actually connections, right? They were people who I knew. And I've spent the last 2.5 years building connections, some on LinkedIn, some like you, through other networking functions, because I'm a solo entrepreneur at the moment, and it's a lonely existence as a solo entrepreneur. So surrounding myself with quality people is, and if I don't have a large organization to tap into, to find those mentors, to find those colleagues who I can collaborate with, and I choose not to work in that space anymore, as an employee, then I needed to build that platform for myself before. And as I did that, that's when I started to figure out, well, what is it that is my genius? What can I do? How can I go? And so I built a product called the Scale to Success solution, which enables the business owner to create, to identify where their business is at, where they'd like it to go, and build a roadmap to get them there. And so I'm still working that out, and there's iteration number 473. I'm effectively a 2.5 year startup with 40 odd years of experience.
Oh, that's just gold. And how many connections have you got now on LinkedIn?
Just under 2,000.
So
and every one of those, and every one of those connections, I've actually made so if someone connects with me, in the early stages, I accepted everybody's connection, and then I would reach out to them and say, hi, thanks for connecting, really appreciate it. What was it about my profile that you thought might interest you? How can I add value? Some people came back to me, and we engaged. Others tried to sell me something, and others it was part of their LinkedIn strategy to, connect with somebody so that they go. And the people who I connected, I never connected with anybody who I wanted to sell something to. So it was always, I want to connect with you because I want a connection. So I want to build a relationship with you. My strategy is changing now, in that I'm now using LinkedIn as a source of new business connections as well. So I have gone into, but again, my strategy is finding people who actually may need my service and trying to add value as a part of that relationship with them, as opposed to straight away getting on and trying to sell them something.
How important is it for people to feel that someone is not trying to sell them something?
How can you tell?
Yeah, that's great, because I hear from so many people around me when they talk about LinkedIn specifically, and someone just called it the other day, it's some sleazy, basically it's a site where you go and you just check out people. It's just a place to try and find business, and it's, It was.
Sorry, Av. Yeah, and LinkedIn, it started off as a recruitment platform, and then Microsoft bought it and turned it into a more networking type, business development tool. And I think before COVID, everybody was focused on Facebook and Instagram, and that was where that's where you did that social media advertising. And then when COVID hit, both of those platforms, Facebook and Instagram, got smashed. And then the marketers started to go, well, where can we go to be more effective and more, B2B, because we don't have, what's the advertising platform? So a lot of those people jumped onto LinkedIn and flooded that marketplace. And so then it became very noisy as well. And so the people who are genuinely looking to add value got swamped by marketers, right? Now, fortunately, those marketers are now moving on to TikTok, right? So TikTok is the next platform that the Gary V's of the world are promoting. So great, thank you. There's this wave of marketers who come, they've gone from Instagram to Facebook to LinkedIn. Now they're on TikTok. Then they'll be on something else, the next iteration of that. And so hopefully they'll leave us alone and we can go back to building, strong relationships with people. Because I've got a particular view of how social media, the perception that social media, and I call LinkedIn social media, is some reflection of the connections that you have. They're not. Right? So when I get a like on my post or a comment, right, I get people who recommend me or who endorse me on my profile who I don't know. Right? I'm connected to them, but I don't know them. And I just find that bizarre that someone would be prepared to provide a endorsement of me and they don't even know me. So authenticity is obviously one of my pets, right? And when I'm engaging with people, my authenticity BS antenna are up. I've actually gone to I think probably a little bit too skeptical now. I'm all of a sudden always looking for what is it this person wants out of this relationship, which I need to let go of, right? Because that's not what the majority of people do. So I don't know.
Think so?
It's a rabbit hole that you can go down, isn't it? It's just, it's fascinating.
Mm. And talking about authenticity, I mean, how does someone be authentic on social media?
How do you be authentic on social media? Well, I think, and I'm not an expert in this area, right? So I'm learning this, but the way I approach it is that I'm wanting to add value wherever possible, right? And I'd be hypocritical if I said that I don't want to sell something, right? But marketing creates the environment for the person who you're talking to believe that what you have they need at that right time. So you're hoping that by being authentic, you deliver value, you give it out freely, without any, it's a bit like tithing, you give without any expectation in return. And that's the hardest part, I think, so to give without expecting anything in return, right? Because subconsciously you're going, well, why am I doing this then, right? So you need to be real with yourself about that as well. So then, being really clear on who it is that you serve, what's the problem that they have that you can then help them overcome that. If you try and sell people stuff that just because you are trying to sell them stuff, and you don't have the solution, so like fake it till you make it or build the parachute on the way down, all of that sort of stuff, that indicates that you haven't really given any thought to what it is that you're doing and you're just faking it, hoping that you'll succeed. That's inauthentic to me. Now, marketers may disagree with me. They may say, well, the product or service is built off the back of that. That's how innovation comes about. That's how you learn, all of those things. And maybe that's right. But for me, giving value, the hardest part is actually being noticed, I think, is being in the right place at the right time when the person actually needs that. And I think that's why, I'm so attracted to the 6-Star Business, because it is the place for people to come and get value, because their intention is to become a 6-star business, whatever it is for them. And so that's why I hang out with you guys.
Thank you. And what a perfect segue into a question around 6-star. So tell me, what does being 6-star mean to you?
Yeah, this is my favorite. It's not 5+1. So I know you need to, so 6-star, 5-star hotel, well, what's a 6-star hotel? And I think there's a transition between doing the way that we do business today. So I think there's probably 5A and 5B before we get to 6-star. And it's a mindset of how you go about behaving as a business owner. And for me, it's about how you care and what do you care about? And being as a positioning statement, I care about my people. I care about my customers. I care about the quality of my product. Well, do you? What are you compromising in your life and your business that doesn't meet that context? Right? So I believe in my staff. Well, 50% of them, because I believe 50% of them do the job, but not all of them. Right? And so I think 6-star for me is, and I'm still working this out, right? But for me, 6-star is about caring for people, about humanity, and taking the inconsistencies of decision making, where we focus on money, where we focus on ego, where we focus on our position in the environment or the ecosystem that we're in, and have a far more human relationship with the people around us. That to me, and it sounds utopian, it almost sounds like communal, and I don't know that, and I haven't worked that out yet, but I know that we as a society, we need to be thinking differently than we have over the last 40 years, because have a look at that thinking, where has that led us to? We have this massive divide between the have and the have-nots. We've got political divides, black and white. My position, not black and white color, but, my position is black, yours is white, so we can't agree. And I think, we get into echo chambers where we hang around with people who have the same opinions as ours, and so therefore that becomes the truth. We don't enable other people into our lives to give us a different opinion and find a context that we can both agree to. So yeah, that's my idea. That's my ideals of a 6-star business. It's not going to be easy to get there, but I know that we'll get there.
What I love, Steve, about what you've just said is, well, quite all of it actually, but I want to just hone in on a couple of points. One is that you're still figuring it out, but it also sounds like it's an evolving thing. And is it that we can't ever actually reach that? Is it always, is it a state of being or a vision that's never quite reached, but we're always aspiring to get there?
Yeah, thank you, Av, for that. I think that's a perfect analogy. You know, it's not a destination; it's a journey, right? So it's infinite in its pathway, and you know we'll get to the next iteration of whatever it is that we get to. You know, we'll solve the energy crisis in the world, and so that'll create opportunities and problems for us, right? You know, the population will grow. That'll create opportunities and problems for us. And so, you know, it's not a thing we get to destination 6-star and you know, nirvana. We've arrived, because we are humans, and humans are a complex ecosystem in itself. And so as humans, we're still trying to figure ourselves out, right? So we're only how many thousands of years in millions of years of human, you know, existence. So we are barely infants in that. So, you know, that's exciting and scary all at the same time. I sound very philosophical today. I don't know what's going on.
See what happens when you sit on the other side of the desk?
I know.
The other thing that you mentioned in your description was this caring about others, and then you said about connecting with others around us in a different way, not being competitive, you know, with that ego nature where we compare the black and the white. How important is it, or is it, where does the collective, as in the us or the we, where does that fit into 6-star compared to the past? The old way of doing business?
Yeah, so I, as we touched on earlier, I was involved in human resources, and inside human resources, there's stuff like performance management, and you know, you've got all the technical stuff about job descriptions and organizational design, and we are now talking about psychological safety, and now it's social safety, right? And I've got a particular view of how human resource managers in the human resource management department add value to a business strategy. And I think they're becoming better at it. But they were, and I blame the managers of people. So the human resource managers, because human resources are just people. So the people managers, which are the line managers, have abdicated their responsibility to LMSs, you know, learning and management systems, to technology, to the human resource department. You know, this person needs to be trained, put them into a training program. And I remember when I first started as a sales rep, I had a mentor who taught me his craft. He was a brilliant salesperson, gentle as all hell. He gave me some really simple tips. Turn up on time. Don't sell them something that you can't deliver. You know, if you don't have a product that services that problem, don't try and shoehorn your product in. Find another solution for them. Be the person who is the catalyst for all of that. And so I think we've lost our way in management, in organizations, where we basically allowed the system to be the manager, as opposed to the individual being the manager, and taking, and this comes back to that care of being thoughtful and accountable for the people that are in your charge, right? And so, you know, I use that word deliberately. You know, if you've got people who work for you and they're employed by either by you or the organization that you work for, they're in your charge. It's your responsibility to make sure that they've got the skills and the capability and capacity to do what they've been employed to do. Yet what we do is we have this, you know, turn up at your new job, here's your desk, here's the LMS, here's the client base, here's the jobs that you need to do. I'll spend half an hour with you. Good luck. See you next week. All right. And then in 12 months' time, we'll do a performance management review. Now, I'm being cruel here, right? It's obviously not exactly that. But to be a 6-star business, I was at a human resource function and everybody's talking about psychological safety. And I said, look, for me, it's important. And they started talking about, we don't like performance management KPIs, right? We think it's detrimental to the cultural safety of the organization. I said, okay, well, how do you measure that? Well, it's about how people are feeling safe. Well, isn't that a KPI? Isn't measuring how safe people feel in the organization, isn't that a key performance indicator for you? So you can't have it, you can't say that you don't measure performance when in fact what you're asking for is a measurement of performance. So I made a comment. I said, look, I think it's really simple. How do you create a psychologically safe environment in your organization? You as a manager need to train 2 of your staff to replace you. You've got 12 months, 18 months to teach them everything that you know to do that. Now, a lot of organizations do that anyway, right? Succession planning, all the rest of it, but they don't make it a KPI. Now, how safe would you feel if you train 2 people to take your place? So the threat there is that those people could take your place, but the opportunity is that those people could take your place. And you can go and do things that are maybe your genius. Maybe the organization can then create opportunities for you to go off and do things. The byproduct is you've got now 3 people who can do the job. You've built capacity. You've built expertise within the organization. You've built corporate intelligence within the organization. And okay, not revelational, but what if you got to that point and the person who you'd invested 5 years in, building them up, training them, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you just didn't have a position for that person. They'd outgrown your ability for them to be able to feel as though they were contributing, right? What if you then went to your competitor and said, guess what? We've got this brilliant person. Their expertise are this, this, and this. We know that you need that, right? Here they are. They're yours. What do you want in return? Nothing. Why are you doing this? Because they're good people. And I know you've got a good business and I know you need them. Imagine if we had that environment where everybody was that selfless, but selfish at the same time. Now, why would you do it? Because someone else is doing the same thing. They're spending 5 years training somebody who you'll need, right? So we've got this ecosystem of transitions of people who love working where they're working and feel safe that they're going to be protected and cared for by the company that they work with. And in the event that they feel as though they've outgrown the organization, there are opportunities for them to go. And it's not a recruitment company that's finding them the job. It's actually the employer that they're working for because they're networking with a whole bunch of people and asking the question. And it sounds crazy, and it sounds Pollyanna-ish, I understand. But so did the World Wide Web when it first started. So did telephone and telegraph, and so did the wheel when it was first. What was the application that we could use for the wheel, right? Well, it could be a gear in a watch. What's a watch?
I love the way your mind works, and you're seeing this opportunity for innovation in this corporate collective space. And also what you tapped into there was how it's really what we can do differently. It's doing things differently. It's going against the current status quo. The current status quo is, no, you're in competition with each other. You fight, you know what I mean? There's that comparison, the competitive nature within the organization and outside of the organization. And that's really been in place for, a number of decades. This is the business environment we live in. In your mind, is being six-star one where that competitive nature falls away? Is it not? Is it moving beyond that?
No, I think you still need to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't, but you compete with authenticity, right? So you can play on a football field, right, against a competitor and win or lose because that's what you're trying to do. But it's how you play the game. If you cheat and, play with the system, we're right in the middle of a football, World Cup. And I just laugh at these players who, they get pushed from behind and the slow-mo, the foot hasn't even been touched and they're writhing on the ground and, oh my God, I'm about to lose my leg. Well, mate, you didn't even get touched because they're gaming the system. So you can be competitive, but be honest as well, right? And sometimes when they fall over, if they had stayed on their feet, they would have scored a goal, right? So I don't have a problem with competitiveness. I don't have a problem with success. Is it deserved of you? Were you the best? And I don't have a problem with failure as well, right? Were you the best that you possibly could be on the field on that day? Did you do the best? Yes, I did. And I was beaten by someone who was better than me. Great. Okay. Well, that just drives me more to try and be better, right? But in an authentic way. And I think, if we all of us just focused on money, that's what we've been doing for the last 40 years, and look where it's got us. People who have got money. I'm here on the Gold Coast. I've got clients on the Gold Coast, and some of their connections are multimillionaires. Gold watches, Maseratis, and they're miserable. They're miserable. Not because they haven't got money. They're miserable because that's their value, is they see themselves as their value is the money that they have. As I mentioned, I'm a mad keen golfer, and I'll call him my son-in-law. He's not married to my daughter yet, but he may as well be. And he played with Cam Smith in the Victorian Open, and or PGA, one of those. And there's a man, Cam Smith, who has got all the notoriety, but he is authentic in his, from what I can see from the outside, right? I don't have the inside knowledge of that. But that to me, like, he's competitive as all hell, right? But he's doing it in an authentic way and not getting carried away with his fame. So I think we can do that. I think we can be competitive and be six-star and be caring. And, when you win, don't gloat. Right? There's a really interesting, and I need to do a little bit more digging in this, but in the Egyptian or the in that sort of North Africa area, when the people would go to the bazaar, right, and the marketers would be there was a sort of an unwritten law amongst those people that would say that once I've sold my quota, which is enough to make the profit that I need to make, and I've sold all of that, the unwritten law was that I would pack up my goods and leave the bazaar, because there were still people there who were looking to purchase. And so that left behind people who had the product that was in competition with me, and the people who were left behind could buy from those people. And then what we've done in this environment is we've gone, no, I'm going to keep my bazaar stall open until I sell all of my product to everybody, even though I'm looking across the aisle and there's someone who's got exactly the same product as I have, same level of quality. They're just doing something maybe that is not as clever as I am, and they're starving.
Mm.
Why would you do that to a colleague, to potentially a friend? I don't understand that.
No. When you mentioned before how you like success and competition, it's healthy, and it certainly is. It's we don't need to go into the why of that, but you've been mentioning this authenticity. And my question to you is that when you say authentic, so in other words, you can be successful but be authentic about it, is that where someone is not necessarily comparing themselves to another person or trying to be like somebody else, and they're figuring out, who am I and what's my vision of success? What's my version of success? What are my KPIs? What is my goal metrics for me to feel like I have succeeded? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, you work in the space of purpose, and you need to be able to understand what your purpose is. And I think you also mentioned, comparing yourself to somebody else. You're unique. Like every one of us you're unique. I'm unique. Comparing myself to other business improvement strategists, to coaches, consultants, doesn't serve me any. It just doesn't help. Right, because I have my uniqueness about me, and so I've got a podcast that and I don't have the number of downloads that I have on a weekly basis. I'd love it to be more, but I don't spend any effort in promoting it either. So it would be pointless for me to look at Joe Rogan and go, I wish I was like Joe Rogan. Well, I haven't put the effort in. Like it just doesn't serve purpose to, and so therefore the ego, it's that sort of, the ego gets in your way, right? And you're trying to prove to somebody that you're something, right? And because I drive in a nice car, I'm important, right? Well, no, I drive in a nice car because I like nice cars. Now, I don't happen to drive in a nice car. I happen to drive in a very modest, VW Golf, because I'm not a car nut. Right? But I've got a very expensive golf set because I like golf. Now, I don't walk around the golf course going, have a look at my golf set, right? It doesn't serve me any purpose. So get your ego out of the way. Stop trying to compare yourself to other people. It doesn't help. Doesn't help. And it's when you figure that out that you just go, oh, I've wasted so much time trying to be something for somebody that I didn't care about anyway. I don't know. Did that answer the question?
It did. And I had a laugh as well. I'm thinking when you were about to say about your car, I'm thinking, what about my car? Well, I just have a very modest car too. It made me laugh. A couple more questions before we wrap up. So, is there someone, maybe it's someone who doesn't know you, it could be a thought leader, it could be someone who's passed away, it could be anyone, but is there someone who you see as an inspiration that would be, you'd say they're 6-star?
Oh, question without notice.
Yes.
Yeah. Without getting too emotional, I mean, my father is he had a 6-star life. He was a 6-star person for me, both my mother and father. So I'd love to spend more time with him if I had that opportunity, and maybe I will. I'm spiritual. I'm not religious, so who knows where that'll take me. There's a person at the moment who I'm following their model of business. His name's Donald Miller. He's probably he talks about business made simple. He's got very simple methodologies. I like the way he operates. He's very authentic. He's very salesy as well, right? So there's a sale. You know that there's a sale, but you feel good about it. Andra Hoffman, right, is the person who is part of our 6-star business or part of the community. It's probably not, he's not someone who I would call a mentor, but someone who is, has a huge heart and cares for people, and I'm working with him. And there's another lady who I'm working with is Linda Gayo, and she works in human design, which is something that I'm fascinated about at the moment. And it's interesting that you mentioned being inventive. I don't think that was the word that you mentioned. Innovative, yeah. And that so memory is one thing that I'm losing, right? But innovation is a strength of my human design. So I'm getting signals around that. So, I'm 67 and I'm still learning, and that's what I love about it. So to answer your question, is there someone, there isn't one person who I go, wow, right? Maybe Ken Blanchard, who wrote the 1 Minute Manager, met the Monkey. He's a hero of mine. Some of the classics, go back to Dale Carnegie and Stephen Covey and those people. I think the modern day people like the Simon Sinek's of the world, I think they're just the modern day version of those classic people. So I like them all.
Cool. All right. Last question, Steve. What advice would you like to leave our listeners with? Any kind of practical tips, wisdom, or anything else?
Another question without notice, Av. A practical piece is don't believe everything that you read. Dig into the detail. And this applies predominantly to business owners. Business owners are told a lot of things by a lot of people, and not all of that information is accurate and has the right intention. And I know the quick starts of the world, they just want to make the quick decision and get on with it, and they believe and trust. And so my advice to those people would be, before you step into the abyss, just have a look to make sure there's a net there to catch you. And as a more global, for everybody, I think we beat ourselves up a lot about not being good enough, and I blame the self-help community. Back in the 80s when the self-help books started coming, and it made the presupposition that we're broken. We're not broken. We're just human. And that's a really big rabbit hole that I can go down, because my brother has got he's got some issues around mental stability, right? And he's no different to me in that, other than the fact that he's got a chemical imbalance that I don't. So I have the same ups and downs every day that he has. It just manifests differently with him. So I would say care about yourself, right? So the self-talk that you have, the idiot inside that tells you one thing and you beat yourself up because I should have done that. That self-talk is really, really important, to just care for yourself.
What a beautiful way to end. Really wise words. Thank you, Steve. I always love chatting with you. There's always new magic that comes out, and you are an innovative thinker. And I love the way that you're always learning and you're always curious. And that's what keeps us evolving as a species. And I'm really grateful that you're in my community and you hang out with us. And that's why, you are 6-star. So thank you.
Thank you, Av. Big shout out to you. You know, you've put a lot of effort into this, and for those who are listening, come and join us. You know, we're really looking for people who can make a difference and have an impact in this world, and we can't do it on our own. So come and have some fun with us.
Yeah. Yes, do, please. Thanks, Steve. Looking forward to seeing you very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Ab. Really appreciate the opportunity.